Welcome to the channel. I'll tell you a story that still frightens and intrigues people in Britain. Fog rolled through the narrow streets of the mining town of Todmorden. The silence was broken only by the occasional creak of pub doors and the clatter of footsteps on the cobblestones. The English countryside went about its usual life, miners' shifts, bustling weekend markets, endless conversations about the weather. No one could have imagined that one of the most mysterious events of the 20th century was about to unfold right here. On the evening of June 6, 1980, 56-year-old miner Zygmunt Adamski stepped out of his home in the village of Tingley. He was heading to the local shop for groceries, a familiar, everyday route just a mile long. He spoke briefly with a neighbor, adjusted his cap, and with a faint smile, set off toward the store. From that moment on, no one ever saw him alive again. For 5 long days, his wife Lottie and the neighbors searched the area. The police checked the roads and questioned acquaintances, but there was no trace. It was as if Zygmunt had simply vanished into thin air. Then, on June 11, Adamski's body was discovered in the last place anyone expected. On top of a black coal pile, 20 miles from his home, lay the dead miner. His face was frozen in a grimace of terror. Strange burns covered his skin, coated with an unknown gel-like substance. His clothes were worn awkwardly, as if someone had hastily dressed him after death. But the most terrifying detail, there were no footprints, no signs of a struggle. The coal pile remained untouched. How did he get there? Who or what brought his body to that height? This story became one of the darkest and most mysterious secrets of Britain. Theories multiplied, from family disputes to alien abduction. Yet the truth was never found. Today, we return to that foggy June day of 1980 and, step by step, we'll try to uncover what really happened to Zygmunt Adamski. Zygmunt Adamski was born in Poland in the 1920s, into a working-class family. His youth was spent in difficult times, war, destruction, and the struggle to survive. He was accustomed to hard work from an early age, and his character was forged in harsh conditions. Yet despite all the hardships, he remained a kind, quiet, and honest man. In 1960, when he and his wife Lottie decided to move to England, it marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. They settled in the small village of Tingley, in West Yorkshire. There, amidst green hills and coal mines, Zygmunt found work as a miner. The locals welcomed the couple warmly. Lottie quickly became friends with the neighbors, and Zygmunt became known as a calm and helpful man. He rarely engaged in conflicts, assisted his neighbors, and always greeted people with a smile on the street. The couple had no children, but their marriage seemed happy. Everyone who knew Zygmunt and Lottie would say, they are the perfect couple. Always together, always caring for each other. In his free time, he enjoyed sitting on the porch with a newspaper or walking along the village paths. He appreciated simple pleasures, a strong cup of tea after work, evening conversations with his wife, and the smell of freshly baked bread from the local bakery. Life seemed measured and drama-free. But beneath the calm surface, shadows sometimes lurked. In those years, rumors spread quickly in small English villages, whispers of disputes among distant relatives, old grudges, and difficult temperaments. Zygmunt himself always stayed out of such matters, he disliked scandals. In the summer of 1980, the family was preparing for a joyful event, a relative's wedding. Lottie and Zygmunt discussed outfits, gifts, and planned the trip. Nothing seemed to foreshadow trouble. That is why his disappearance was such a shock to everyone. It was impossible to believe that such a kind and calm man could vanish without a trace. At that time, no one knew that this quiet miner would become the central figure in one of the darkest and most inexplicable mysteries in Britain. June 6, 1980, began as the most ordinary summer day in Tingley. The morning was sunny, a gentle breeze swayed the curtains in the windows, and the air carried the scent of freshly cut grass. Life seemed to follow its usual course, and nothing foreshadowed trouble. Zygmunt woke up early, as always. He had breakfast with Lottie, thanked her for the meal, and made a small joke, lifting his wife's spirits. In the past few weeks, he had seemed particularly cheerful. The upcoming family celebration promised a reunion with loved ones, giving him extra energy. Around noon, he told Lottie he was going to the local shop for groceries. It was only about a kilometer away, a familiar route he had walked dozens of times. Nothing unusual, no signs of trouble. Before leaving, he exchanged a few words with a neighbor, the usual small talk about the weather. Everything appeared completely ordinary. But from this moment on began a chain of events that would leave the police, friends, and family bewildered for years. Zygmunt did not return. At first, Lottie was not worried. Perhaps he had been delayed, met someone he knew, or stopped by the pub. But as hours passed, her heart began to tighten with anxiety. By evening, when her husband still had not returned, a tense silence settled over the house. The next morning, Lottie went to the police. Officers filed a report but initially did not give it much importance. Adults sometimes disappear for a day or two. But friends and neighbors knew, Zygmunt was not the type to leave suddenly or run off. He never left home without warning and never missed family obligations. Searches began. They checked the roads, nearby fields, the mines, and even local pubs. They questioned friends and acquaintances. No one had seen anything. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Night passed, then another. The days dragged painfully. Lottie hardly slept, sitting by the window, hoping to see her husband's familiar figure. But the door never opened. With each passing day, hope grew weaker. The police increasingly repeated, he probably just wandered off. But Lottie knew, it was impossible. Her Zygmunt would never have done that. And then, after 5 long days, a call to the station changed everything. A body had been found at a coal yard 20 miles from Tingley. June 11, 1980. The weather was warm, a typical summer day. At a coal yard in the town of Todmorden, 20 miles from Tingley, the owner's son, Trevor Parker, arrived as usual to open the gates for the evening shift. Around 3:30 p.m., he walked across the familiar grounds, thinking about his own tasks. Everything was as usual, gray piles of coal, metal containers, the smell of dust and soot. But this time, his eyes fell upon something that should not have been there. On top of a 12-foot coal pile, as if absurdly dropped from above, lay a man. Trevor froze. He blinked, thinking he must be imagining it. But no, it was a man, sprawled on his back, his face twisted in terror. In the next second, shock turned into horror. He realized, it was a corpse. He ran to the phone and called the police. The first officers arrived within minutes. Among them was Alan Godfrey, the same officer who would later play a strange role in this story. They saw Zygmunt Adamski. The miner's body lay right on top of the coal pile. And it was immediately clear, something about this scene was all wrong. His clothing fit awkwardly, as if someone had dressed him hastily. The shirt he had worn when leaving home was missing. His jacket was buttoned incorrectly, his trousers crooked, his belt and shoes carelessly fastened. It seemed as though someone else's hands had dressed him, hands that didn't know how the outfit was supposed to look. On his neck and shoulders were second-degree burns. Zygmunt's skin was clean. Completely clean. No trace of coal dust, dirt, or stains. Even his hair looked neat. It was as if he had just stepped out of the shower and laid down on the coal pile. His face, that was what made the officers freeze. His features were contorted in horror. His eyes wide open, his mouth half open. This was not a peaceful passing, not a quiet death in sleep. This was a man confronted by something so terrifying that his heart could not bear it. And it raised questions. How did the body end up on top of the coal pile? There were no footprints around, neither human nor animal. The ground at the base was untouched. It was as if someone had simply lowered the body from above, or dropped it from the air. The coroners noted that death was due to a heart attack. But their report also stated that Adamski had experienced extreme stress and pain before dying. Another strange detail, he had been missing for 5 days. Yet his beard had only grown a single day's length. What had happened to him during the rest of that time? Where had he been? Who had fed him? Why did his body appear so well-groomed, and not emaciated? The police were at a dead end. Explaining the events through ordinary means seemed almost impossible. And it was at that point that the most incredible rumors began to circulate around the case. From the very beginning, the police understood that the case of Zygmunt Adamski would not be simple. At first glance, everything pointed to a natural death, a heart attack. But the circumstances were so strange that even the most skeptical officers could not dismiss the multitude of unusual details. The first thing that caught their attention was the burns. They were fresh, second degree, as if the skin had been burned by a caustic or hot substance. But even more mysterious was the substance covering them. The coroners sent samples to laboratories. The result was shocking, the substance could not be identified. It did not match any known medical treatment or household chemical. What was it, and who, most importantly, applied it to the burns? Logically, one might assume that if someone had burned Zygmunt, they would hardly bother to treat him. Yet the gel looked precisely like a healing ointment. It was as if someone had made a strange attempt to help him. The second anomaly was the clothing. Police and family members confirmed that Adamski was not wearing the same outfit he had left home in. His shirt, watch, and wallet had vanished without a trace. The suit itself appeared to have been put on by someone who had little understanding of how to button a jacket or fasten a belt. Was this due to haste? Or was he dressed by someone who didn't understand human habits? The third strangeness was the condition of the body. Zygmunt had been missing for 5 days, yet he appeared as if he had spent that time in comfort. No signs of hunger or dehydration were found. His beard had grown only a day's length. But where had he been the rest of the time? Who had fed him? Why did his body and clothes remain clean, despite being found on a coal pile? The fourth detail, long whispered even among the police, was the absence of footprints. Around the coal pile, there were no traces at all. The surface remained untouched. It was as if the body had been placed there without human intervention, carefully set on top. This defied any earthly explanation. Finally, there was the face. The autopsy report noted that at the moment of death, Zygmunt had experienced extreme shock and fear. His eyes were distorted, his features frozen in a grimace of horror. What had he seen in his final moments? The police tried to consider rational explanations. Could he have been abducted by relatives involved in a family dispute? Could he have been held in a shed or basement, with the burns caused by acid during torture? Could his death have been accidental, and the body simply hidden on the coal pile? But each of these theories fell apart under careful analysis. If it was revenge, why leave the body in plain sight? If it was torture, where did the strange gel, resembling medicine, come from? If he had wandered to the yard himself, why were there no footprints, and why did he look so well-groomed? No single explanation formed a coherent picture. Soon, the case gained a sinister notoriety. Newspapers picked up the story, journalists wrote about the mysterious minor case. In the pubs and streets of Todmorden, people whispered, he was abducted, but not by humans. It was then that a word first appeared that would turn the entire investigation upside down: UFO. When the official investigation reached a dead end, rumors began to intervene. At first, they were quiet conversations in kitchens and pubs, then they became bold headlines in newspapers. Zygmunt Adamski abducted by aliens. To ordinary people, it sounded insane. But the more details emerged, the less convincing the rational explanations became. And then entered a man whose name would forever be linked to the Adamski case, police officer Alan Godfrey. Alan was an ordinary Todmorden police officer, young but already respected in the station. He participated in the investigation of Zygmunt's body and was the first to notice the absence of footprints around the coal pile. From that moment, the case haunted him. But the most astonishing event occurred several months later. On November 21, 1980, Godfrey was on duty on a road near Todmorden. The night was dark and damp, the road deserted. Suddenly, he noticed a bright light ahead, like the headlights of a bus blocking the road. As he approached, Alan realized, it wasn't a bus. Before him hovered a huge oval-shaped object, slowly rotating. Its surface shimmered, and a strange mist swirled around it. The police car stalled. The radio stopped working. Alan managed to grab his notebook and sketch the object. It was recorded in detail in his report, not a blurred silhouette, not a figment of imagination, but a concrete drawing made by an officer on duty. This case became one of the most famous police UFO sightings in the United Kingdom. Later it emerged that Godfrey experienced missing time that night. Only a few minutes had passed on his watch, but in reality, he had been absent for about half an hour. Later, under hypnosis, he reported being lifted aboard the craft, where he encountered strange beings. His memories were fragmented but matched typical alien abduction stories. And here's the most chilling part: all of this happened just a few miles from the place where Zygmunt Adamski's body was found. Local residents began to speculate. Could Zygmunt have been abducted by the same beings? Could the burns have been the result of experiments aboard the craft? Could the strange gel have been of extraterrestrial origin, an attempt by aliens to heal him? People wondered if the miner had become an accidental victim of alien experiments, and his death a tragic mistake. The newspapers eagerly picked up the theory. "Aliens killed the miner," screamed the headlines. And although the police officially denied any connection between the Adamski case and UFOs, Alan Godfrey's name became known nationwide. But along with this fame came problems. His superiors considered his statements a disgrace to the force. Colleagues began whispering behind his back. Soon, Godfrey was forced to resign. The case of Zygmunt and his own UFO encounter had destroyed his career. Meanwhile, the Adamski case continued to grow in legend. Some claimed to have seen strange lights in the sky the night before his disappearance. Others reported that unexplained phenomena frequently occurred in the area. Yet the central fact remained unchanged: the miner's body lay on the coal pile, as if someone had carefully placed it there after spending the last 5 days with him. And no earthly explanation could piece the puzzle together. The death of Zygmunt Adamski quickly became a mystery discussed not only in the pubs of Todmorden but across all of Britain. People debated, speculated, and journalists poured fuel on the fire. What theories existed? Theory 1: Family conflict. One of the first police hypotheses was that his disappearance was related to family disputes. The Adamski family indeed had tense relations with distant relatives. Some even claimed there had been legal disputes. According to this version, Zygmunt might have been kidnapped, held for several days, and then disposed of. But, why did he look well-groomed instead of emaciated? Where did the mysterious gel come from? And most importantly, why place the body on a coal pile, where it would immediately be found? This version seemed far-fetched. Theory 2: Accident and negligence. Another theory suggested that Adamski might have lost his memory or become disoriented, wandered for several days, suffered burns, and then died of a heart attack. Perhaps someone accidentally found his body and in panic tried to hide it on the coal pile. But, the journey from Tingley to Todmorden is 20 miles. How could he have gotten there without transport? Why had no one seen him for 5 days? How did his body end up on top of the pile with no footprints around? Theory 3: Abduction and torture. Some speculated that Zygmunt had been kidnapped by criminals, tortured with acid or electricity, and then left to die. But, the gel on the burns resembled a healing ointment rather than evidence of torture. It was unclear why the kidnappers would not hide the body but instead display it openly. The autopsy found no signs of abuse aside from the burns. Theory 4: Secret experiments. A darker theory suggested that Adamski had been the victim not of aliens, but of humans, perhaps military or medical personnel. He might have been abducted for participation in classified experiments, and the strange gel was the result of an unknown compound. But, why a miner from a small village? Why dispose of the body in such an absurd location? And most importantly, why leave evidence that would cause such a stir? Theory 5: UFOs and extraterrestrials. Finally, the most famous and mystical theory: Zygmunt had been abducted by aliens. This theory explained many things: his disappearance for 5 days, his well-groomed appearance as if kept in sterile conditions, the strange burns and unidentifiable gel, the lack of footprints as if the body had been lowered from the air. Support for this version also came from the fact that just a few months later, police officer Alan Godfrey had a UFO encounter in the same area. Critics, of course, objected: where's the evidence? Where are the photos, videos, real artifacts? But for those who believed in the supernatural, this version seemed the most logical. Theory 6: A mystery without an answer. There was also a perspective that no explanation would ever be found. The Adamski case is one of those rare stories where too many details remain unexplained. Some believed the truth was hidden forever because it was either too incredible or too dangerous to reveal. Each theory had its weaknesses. Earthly explanations crumbled under the weight of the facts. Fantastic explanations seemed too absurd to be true. And so the story of Zygmunt Adamski remains one of the most mysterious in British criminal history. Weeks passed after Zygmunt Adamski's body was found on the coal pile. Yet in Todmorden and the surrounding villages, no one was in a hurry to forget what had happened. The locals began avoiding the mine where the body had been discovered. Old men in pubs whispered the gruesome details to each other, the burns, the mysterious gel, the way the body seemed to have fallen from the sky. Women closed their shutters earlier than usual, and children were afraid to wander at dusk. Todmorden seemed shrouded in a fog of the unknown. The story affected police officer Alan Godfrey the most. He was the first to see the body on the coal pile. At the time, he thought it was simply a strange incident. But day by day, the questions multiplied, and the answers disappeared. A few months later, his own life turned into a nightmare, encounters with a UFO, lost time, and strange, fragmented memories. He began to understand, the mystery of Adamski and his own story were connected by an invisible thread. Instead of rewards and respect, Godfrey faced ridicule from his colleagues and distrust from his superiors. Newspapers wrote about the policeman who believes in flying saucers, and his career gradually crumbled. Yet, despite everything, he continued to insist until the end of his life that there was something inhuman in the Adamski case. Lottie, Zygmund's widow, never recovered from his death. She could never accept that her husband had simply died of a heart attack. Every night, she had the same dream, Zygmunt walking toward the house through the fog, reaching out his hand, and then disappearing. Relatives said that Lottie seemed to age 10 years in just 1 month. For the people of Yorkshire, the Adamski story became a legend. Some insisted, this was the work of humans. One of the relatives was involved. Others whispered, no, it was them, the ones who come from the sky. Each generation retold the story in its own way. Some focused on the strange burns and gel, others on how the body appeared out of nowhere. Eventually, the case became more than just a mystery, it became a symbol, a reminder that even in quiet villages, among green hills, there may be something we cannot explain. Over 40 years have passed. Archives gather dust, and witnesses are dwindling. Yet anyone who studies the Adamski case inevitably arrives at the same feeling, there is more hidden here than we can comprehend. Some believe the truth is nearby. Others think it will never be revealed. But one thing is certain, from the day miner Zygmunt Adamski was found atop the coal pile, the small town of Todmorden ceased to be ordinary. His name is forever inscribed on the map of the most chilling and unexplained mysteries of the 20th century. Decades passed. Summer fogs still roll over Todmorden, the minor towns maintain their familiar rhythm of life, and the green hills appear as peaceful as they were in June 1980. Yet who knows what happens when no one is looking? The story of Zygmunt Adamski remains a mystery. The official version is a heart attack. But the facts don't add up: strange burns, unidentifiable gel, absence of footprints, the pristine condition of his body and clothes, the witness's 5-day time loss. Many believe the truth lies in space, that the miner became an accidental victim of alien experiments.